Listen, life will test you. Life will push you. It will break you down and make you question everything. Some of you right now, you're carrying burdens too heavy for you, fighting battles that feel impossible to win. You've been trying to fix everything, control everything, hold everything together on your own. But let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly let go and gave it to God? Because let me tell you, you are not meant to carry it all. You are not meant to handle every struggle, every storm, every challenge by yourself. And the reason some of you are exhausted, the reason some of you feel stuck, the reason some of you feel like no matter how hard you try, things just don't seem to work out, it's because you haven't surrendered it yet. You're still trying to do God's job instead of letting God do his work. Give it to God. That pain you're holding on to, that fear, that stress, that doubt, give it to him. Stop fighting battles that were never yours to fight. Stop trying to control what was never meant to be in your hands. Because when you surrender, when you trust, when you truly let go and put it in God's hands, that's when miracles happen. That's when chains break. That's when doors open that you could have never opened on your own. We live in a world that tells you, take control, make it happen, push harder. And for some of you, that's exactly what you've been doing. Fighting, grinding, pushing through, trying to figure it all out, trying to hold everything together. You're carrying burdens you were never meant to carry, trying to control outcomes that were never yours to control. And the weight of it, it's getting heavier. You feel it. That exhaustion in your spirit, that frustration in your heart, that never-ending cycle of worry and doubt. It's all because you're trying to handle something that was never meant to be in your hands. But let me ask you something. When has worrying ever changed the outcome? When has stress ever fixed the situation? When has fear ever made the path clearer? It hasn't, and it won't, because you were not created to carry it all. You were not built to handle every problem, every obstacle, every challenge by yourself. But that's exactly what some of you are doing. Taking on battles that don't belong to you, trying to control things that are out of your hands, and then wondering why you're drained, why you're overwhelmed, why you feel stuck in the same place. You're trying to do God's job. And let me tell you something, you are not God. You don't see the whole picture. You don't know the entire plan. You don't understand every detail, every reason, every purpose behind what you're going through. And yet, you're acting like it's all up to you. Like if you don't fix it, it won't get fixed. Like if you don't handle it, it won't get handled. But let me tell you, God never asked you to do it alone. He never said, figure it out on your own. He never said, worry your way through it. He said, trust me. He said, lean on me. He said, give it to me. But that's the problem, isn't it? You say you trust him, but you don't act like it. You say you have faith, but the moment things get tough, you start doubting. The moment things don't go your way, you start panicking. You start trying to take back control, trying to force things to happen in your timing, in your way. And when it doesn't work, you get frustrated, you get discouraged, you start thinking maybe God forgot about you, maybe he's not listening, maybe he's not working fast enough. But let me remind you, his ways are higher than your ways. His timing is better than your timing. His plan is greater than your plan. You're not in control. And that's okay. In fact, that's the best news you could ever hear. Because if you were in control, you'd mess it up. If you were in control, you'd settle for less than what God has for you. If you were in control, you'd be making decisions based on what you see right now instead of what's actually best for your future. But God, he sees the whole picture. He sees what's coming. He knows what's best for you, even when you don't. Some of you are holding on to things that God is trying to remove. You're fighting for relationships that God is trying to end. You're chasing opportunities that God is closing the door on. You're running in circles, wondering why it feels like nothing is working, when the truth is God is trying to lead you somewhere better. But as long as you keep trying to do it your way, you'll keep missing it. As long as you keep trying to control everything, you'll keep walking in frustration, in confusion, in exhaustion. You don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to trust. You just have to let go. You just have to say, God, I can't do this on my own. I give it to you. That's what surrender looks like. That's what faith looks like. And I know it's hard. I know it's scary. I know you like to have a plan. You like to know what's next. You like to feel like you're in control. But hear me, you can't walk in faith and still hold on to fear. You can't say you trust God while still trying to do everything yourself. You can't step into His plan while still clinging to your own. You have to release it. That situation that's been keeping you up at night, give it to God. That stress you've been carrying, give it to God. That uncertainty about your future, give it to God. You don't have to see the whole path. You don't have to know every step. You just have to trust the one who does. You just have to believe that He is for you. He is with you. He is working even when you don't see it, even when you don't feel it. Because the moment you let go, the moment you surrender, the moment you truly give it to Him, that's the moment you find peace. That's the moment the weight lifts. That's the moment everything changes, not because your situation suddenly looks different, but because your perspective does. Because when you stop trying to control everything, you make room for God to move. You make room for Him to open the doors you've been banging on, to bring the opportunities you've been chasing, to align things in a way that you never could on your own. And that's the power of surrender. That's the power of faith. That's the power of stepping back and saying, God, I trust you. No matter what it looks like, no matter what it feels like, I trust you. Because when you do that, when you truly give it to Him, that's when miracles happen. That's when breakthrough comes. That's when you realize that you were never meant to carry it all anyway. Everybody talks about faith. Everybody says they believe. But when life gets hard, when things don't go the way they expected, when the pressure hits and the storms come, suddenly that faith gets shaky. Suddenly that trust starts slipping. It's easy to have faith when things are going well. It's easy to say, I trust God when the bills are paid, when the doors are opening, when everything is falling into place. But what about when life doesn't make sense? What about when you're praying and nothing is changing? What about when you're waiting and waiting, but the breakthrough isn't coming? That's where real faith is tested. That's where you find out if you really trust God or if you just trust Him when it's convenient. Faith isn't just words. It's not just something you say. It's something you live. It's something you act on. It's something you walk in even when you can't see the next step. Too many people pray for something and then walk away doubting. They ask God to make a way, but then they live like they don't believe He will. They say they trust Him, but then they keep trying to fix things in their own strength. That's not faith. That's fear. That's control. That's you saying, God, I trust you, but just in case you don't come through, let me handle this myself. But faith doesn't work like that. Faith means stepping back and knowing that if God said He will do it, then it's already done. Some of you are waiting for a sign before you move, waiting for things to make sense before you take a step. But faith moves before the answer comes. Faith walks when the path isn't clear. Faith trusts even when the situation looks impossible. You don't need proof before you believe. You need to believe before you see proof. You need to act like it's already done. You need to wake up every day and carry yourself like the victory is already won. Because if God is in it, it's already finished. Look at the stories in the Bible. When Peter walked on water, Jesus didn't tell him, let me calm the storm first, then you can step out. No, the storm was still raging. The waves were still high. But Peter stepped out anyway. He didn't wait for the conditions to be perfect. He didn't wait for the situation to feel safe. He walked in faith. And as long as he kept his eyes on Jesus, he stayed above the waves. But the moment he started looking at the storm, the moment he let fear take over, he started sinking. And that's exactly what happens to so many people today. They start off strong, they step out in faith, but then they start looking around at the problems, at the challenges, at the things that don't make sense, and fear creeps in, doubt creeps in, and before they know it, they're sinking under the weight of their own worry. You cannot let fear rob you of your faith. You cannot let doubt keep you from stepping into what God has for you. If you're waiting for everything to be perfect before you trust Him, you'll be waiting forever. God doesn't move according to your timeline. He doesn't need your understanding to do what He's going to do. Your job is to trust. Your job is to believe. Your job is to take that step, even when it's scary, even when it doesn't make sense, even when you don't have all the answers. Faith without action is dead. You can't just pray and then sit back doing nothing, waiting for God to drop a miracle in your lap. Faith requires movement. Faith means preparing for what you prayed for. If you're asking God for an opportunity, are you ready for it when it comes? If you're asking for a breakthrough, are you positioned to receive it? If you're praying for God to open a door, are you ready to walk through it? Some of you are asking for things you're not even prepared for yet. You're waiting on God, but God is waiting on you. Think about the story of Noah. God told him to build an ark because a flood was coming. But Noah had never seen rain before. He didn't even know what a flood was. He could have doubted. He could have hesitated. But instead, he started building. He didn't wait to see the first drop of rain before he picked up his tools. He acted in faith. He moved before the proof. He prepared before the storm came. That's what faith looks like. It's obedience, it's trust, it's moving forward even when you don't fully understand. Some of you have been stuck for too long because you're waiting for God to show you the whole plan before you take a step. But God doesn't give you the whole blueprint. He gives you one step at a time. And until you take that step, you won't see the next one. You don't need to understand everything. You just need to trust the one who does. You just need to be faithful in the small things. You just need to take the step He's already told you to take. So what does that look like for you? Maybe it's applying for that job even though you don't know if you'll get it. Maybe it's starting that business even though the resources aren't all there yet. Maybe it's walking away from that relationship even though you're afraid of being alone. Maybe it's forgiving that person even though they don't deserve it. Whatever it is, stop waiting for perfect conditions and start moving in faith. Because the longer you wait, the longer you delay the blessing that's already on the way. Faith is not just something you talk about, it's something you live. It's the way you walk, the way you move, the way you trust, even when everything around you is telling you to give up. Because when you truly have faith, you don't have to see it to believe it. You believe it before you see it. You don't have to understand it to trust it. You trust it because you know God never fails. And when you walk in that kind of faith, that's when you see doors open that no man can shut. That's when you see mountains move. That's when you see the impossible become possible.